Hello, everybody. I know there's not many people in Twitch chat right now, but that's fine because this is going up on YouTube after. So, welcome to the Horsehead Weekly. This is going to be the draft recap show featuring the one, the only Jerry. But first, before we get to him, this week is just going to be a quick recap of the World Cup. We're going to take a round by round analysis of the first 6 rounds. We're going to do a look at the mid to late round picks and see, some of the picks we really liked. Maybe talk about some of the ones we didn't like so much. And then go over some of the best and worst teams with our special guest, as I mentioned before, Gerald. Gerald, how are you doing today?
I'm tired.
I'm aware. So POE, right? That's what you're doing?
Yes.
All right. Well, hopefully you can grind out that league and win it. I don't even know PoE things, but I love this.
Yes.
I love this picture of you.
That is one of the better pictures I've ever taken.
That was a really good time. So moving on, let's just take a quick look at the World Cup. The group stages, after a couple weeks of everyone having a lot of fun watching their teams play, half of the teams were eliminated and one contender was eliminated. We then moved on to the World Cup knockout stage, where after a few very close games and some really interesting stuff, Mike ended up reigning victorious with France beating out Steve's Croatia 4-2 in the finals and leaving Belgium in third. From there, we went on to deciding our draft picks based on our World Cup results with a lot of tiebreakers, a lot more tiebreakers than I thought were going to be, but that's probably because I'm just didn't consider how many, how World Cup worked. And it was basically everyone taking the next best position for the most part, with a couple people like Jerry, Matt, M, and Malcolm, jazzing it up a little near the end. But that's it for now. We have a draft board. This is the first 7 rounds. Just want to let everybody take a good look at that because it's nice. I like it. There's, because we did the draft pick trading, it's gonna look dumb. It wasn't Rob Gronkowski and T.Y. Hilton to Mike as the first 2 picks of the first round, but you know, I don't know. I think this is a pretty good look at what was going on, and yeah. So let's start with the first round. And Jerry, you have a bone to pick with Doug because you do not like him taking Julio Jones at 9.
I think it's safe to say that I have had a man crush on Julio Jones for his entire career.
I
And
would I would I would
I'm
agree with that.
generally pretty high on him. But this year, after what they did last year, and I don't know, man, I am just completely off the Falcons bandwagon. I think there are two, arguably three or four wide receivers that were still on the board that I would rather take. I would much rather have either Michael Thomas or Keenan Allen. And then if you took Devontae Adams or AJ Green over him as well, I think that would have been fine. But I wouldn't have taken any of those guys in the first round for sure.
So you definitely would have rather him have taken like a Melvin Gordon or something like that, who is another player who you had commented on when we were talking about it earlier. You really like that pick at number 12.
Yeah, I think Melvin Gordon of the top, aside from the top four running backs, Melvin Gordon easily has the highest floor. I mean, I think he's pretty much a lock to be a top 10 running back. The reason he falls is because, he's a lock for a top 10, but he's a lock for probably not a top 2 or a top 3. But I mean, he's everything you want in a first round pick. A steady guy you can just count on. The- yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think that it's a pretty safe pick because like you said, I think he has top 5 ceiling, top 10 floor, which not very exciting, but you know what you're going to get, and you're starting with a very safe pick. Um, and then let's just stay on Maddie's team for a little bit here as we move on to round number 2, because we had a little talk about this. I am not a fan of Kareem Hunt. I think that Spencer Ware is going to get some touches. They're going to be loading up the box a little bit, at least early on in the season, trying to make Mahomes throw on them. And once he shows that he can, because I think that will be a thing that happens, especially with the wide receiver talent that they have, he's still, he had that horrible stretch last year, and he's just, I don't know, I'm just afraid of him, and I don't think 13 was the place to take him. I think he was probably closer to like a 17, 18 for me. So what did you think about Kareem Hunt? Because I know you were definitely higher on him than I am.
I think that he is the best running back on the board. And if Matt is dead set on going running back, then yeah, I would probably have taken Thomas over him. Uh, Maybe not Allen, but I would have taken Kareem Hunt over someone like Leonard Fournette. I wouldn't rather have Dalvin Cook. Some people say they would rather have McCaffrey, which is fine. We do have PPR, so it kind of makes sense. But I just think like that if you wanted to go running back there, there's only one or two choices, and that's one of them, and it's fine.
Yeah, I mean that is fair. But we'll just have to see how that all shakes out. So moving a little bit later in the round, how did you feel about Devontae Freeman, seeing how you are our, let's say, our Falcons expert?
Falcons expert. Um, I think Devontae Freeman is a poor man's Melvin Gordon. You know what he's going to do. He's pretty much a lock for top 15, top 16 if he doesn't get hurt. Breaking into that top 5 or even top 10 might be a little hard, but he's he's a guy that you can stick. I think it's Dave's RB2, right? Yeah, he has Elliott.
Hmm.
So Devontae Freeman's going to stick in his RB2 and he's going to stay there for the entire year unless he gets hurt. And he's going to get you the points you want. He's good, but he's just not exciting.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. When you start your team off with Elliott into Freeman, that's just a really brutal combo that it's not going to be easy for a lot of people to beat. Um,
Yeah,
mo-
as long as the Cowboys line isn't falling apart like it seems they might be this preseason, Dave pretty much has a lock for number 1 and number 2. He can just forget about his running backs for the rest of the year.
so moving on, one more pick down, Jerick McKinnon. I personally am a little bit worried about him because we haven't ever seen him take on the full workload. He did that for a little bit last year in Minnesota, but then when they brought back Murray definitely shined a little bit in that where they were sharing touches and stuff. And yeah, I know he does have hands and he can catch, so he's definitely gets a little bit of a bump here in PPR. But I just wanted to say that I'm a little bit worried about him, and we'll see what he does.
Yeah, who knows? I have no idea. He could be great or terrible.
Yeah, that's he's the opposite of your of Freeman and Gordon. Moving on to round number 3, I just thought that there was this little chunk near the middle end of the round that just was really interesting with Jarvis Landry being taken, I think, a little bit high. Kenyon Drake, admittedly, being taken a little bit high. Kelsey falling all the way to 33 for Doug. And then you took Baldwin, and then I think Malcolm, again, a little bit high on Freeman. So it's basically like 3 people who I think were taking a little high and 2 people who I think were pretty good steals. So I just want to focus in on Doug Baldwin right now because I have you here with me. You aren't afraid of any kind of lingering injury or anything like that, or any issues with that a lot of people are saying, oh, the Falcons are, or not the Falcons, the Seahawks are going to be bad this year. Their offensive line is going to be garbage. Their defense is going to be garbage. That's not worrying you at all, taking somebody like Doug Baldwin?
Oh no, of course it's worrying. That's why I took him at the end of the third round.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's
Like,
fair.
I mean, think last year he was a number 1 or round 1 pick. I think a lot of people took him there. He was not getting by the beginning of the second. Last year was interesting to say the least. This year, uh, yeah, he's hurt. He has Tyler Lockett behind him, which Lockett could come up and steal some touches or even take over the role. But I think the upside is there for end of round 3.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that I hate almost every pick in this round. I think round 3 is super duper rough and it's just a complete fall off of talent and it's just super scary. I don't know.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think after the that's why I highlighted this section because it feels like after Tyreek Hill, it's just a cliff. If you don't, if you know, from him to Landry and Drake, and then you climb back up for Kelsey and Baldwin, and then Freeman. I mean, you know, he could be the guy, and if he's the guy, and he's as good as he's looked in the preseason, he could be great. But I think round 3 is just a little bit too expensive of a price for me.
The only picks I really like in this round are Gronk and
Gronk and Kelsey, is that what you said? Or
yeah,
Gronk and Baldwin?
I think those are fine, but everyone else feels like it's early. I mean, it's not early because there's no one else, but it just everyone else sucks. I hate it.
All right. So let's move on to round 4, where I think you, when we were talking, you said that this is a bit of a rebound from round 3. You didn't really like a lot of picks in round 3, but round 4, you were looking and you're like, yeah, no, there's definitely some value here.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Alex Collins and Derrick Henry fell, so there was wide receiver talent, and this is where like the next set of possible good wide receivers come in. Cooper could always rebound. Demaryius Thomas is, forever there. There's a chance Marvin Jones takes over. I don't really see it, but Jay Ajayi and Lamar Miller are your like classic oh shit button. They're starting running backs. I can put them on my team and be somewhat happy. Like everyone in this round is just a player that you don't mind having in the fourth.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that. Just to go back and touch on the Marvin Jones, I am just really not buying into that. I feel like you have if was it Galladay, if he catches up and he starts playing, better in his second season, you have Marvin Jones there, and you also have Golden Tate there. You also have they like throw into their running backs a decent amount. I don't know. I just feel like there's too many mouths to feed, and but that is one of those offenses where they throw a billion times a year. So it could work out, and if he becomes the guy, then yeah, of course he can bust out. Um, yeah. So how do you feel about Greg Olson going in the late in the fourth round? He's definitely not in that top tier, those top 3 tight ends, but I think you can definitely put him as a 4 or 5. But is it a little too early in the fourth round?
I think so, but I mean, Olson's weird because he's old. He's been hurt before. Nobody knows what the hell Cam Newton's going to do every year. Like, after those first 3 of Gronk, Kelsey, and Ertz, 4 through 10 are just like, it's anybody's game. I mean, I've talked to a few people that said they would have taken Olsen earlier. This was, in fact, a fantastic pick. And then I also tell people that say, or hear people say, like, oh, they wouldn't touch Olsen. So he seems to be one of those, like, really one side or the other players this year.
Yeah, I can see that. And bravo to James on the Derrick Henry pick. As soon as I picked DT and then he took Henry, I was like, that's the person I wanted to pick. I clicked the button and I said, oh, I'm going to take Demaryius Thomas, but the person I should have taken was definitely Derrick Henry there, and I don't know if I just didn't see him or if I didn't think about it, but that was a mistake on my part.
Yeah, I agree entirely. It was a mistake on your part.
Thank you, Jerry. Moving on to round 5, Matt Ryan going at 50 to Steve. I mean, I don't know. Did Steve not watch football all last season? Like, I think maybe you've talked to him more than I do. Was he just not aware that last season happened? And he's still like, oh, Matt Ryan's the #1 quarterback in the NFL.
No idea. I hate Atlanta. I'm sure some people take Matt Ryan in the 5th, but he's the second quarterback off the board. I think is a bit crazy, but hey, man, he came out of nowhere and had an MVP season 2 years ago. I guess he could do it again. I just fucking hate Atlanta this year.
Fair enough. And then at 58, I just love the Golden Tate pick there. I think that he's a real solid guy, and yeah, there's a lot of mouths to feed out there, but I think the reason I like him here more than I like Jones where he was taken is because one, you got him so much later, and two, you got the guy that's going to get like a ton of touches, and in PPR that's going to go a long way for you. So I think that's a really good pick.
I like him. We are only half point, so receptions are a big deal, but they aren't as big. That's why I think a guy like Thielen would be more valuable in another draft than ours. Uh, and I but that's probably why Golden Tate fell a little bit because Marvin Jones is gonna get more production per target. Um, it's just one of those balancing acts. I love Golden Tate. I think it's great. I think I picked him probably about a half round late, which is good.
Yeah,
So yeah,
good job on that. And then our final in the round by round section of the draft, we get to round 6, where again you just keep picking on your brother Doug there with your J.J. Watt take.
yeah. JJ Watt is he. Who the fuck knows? Like he was the best defensive player in fantasy for 4 straight years, bar none. Doesn't matter. And then he played 8 games over the next 2 years. In those 8 games, he recorded 11 solo tackles and 1.5 sacks. I think he had like 10 or 15 assisted tackles too. But those are just, even if you just make those 8 games, like those numbers are just abysmal. Oh my god. Does he have what it takes to show up? Possibly. I don't know, man. I think first defensive player off the board is terrifying, and in the 6th round, that's even more terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lukewarm on the Zach Brown pick, and I think he's definitely in the race for the number 1 linebacker, and then thus the number 1 IDP player in the league. But still, it's he took J.J. Watt before that, and I think what was it last year when our first one? I think it was like the 8th round before anyone even like dipped their toe in the water. So it was
I
really interesting to
think
see how early it went this year.
I think it was the 7th. I also don't like that Zach Brown pick. In the next round, I know we're not showing it, but I also took C.J. Mosley, which is another top end linebacker, and I also hate that pick. And that's just because after looking, linebackers just so deep. Even if you're shooting for the first guy, there's no reason to take it
Well, yeah, and you got
this
him
early.
at pick what 82-ish or something like that, where Zach Brown went literally a full round before that. So
In all fairness, I don't think either of us should have picked either of them before pick like 90, 95. We both jumped the gun.
and then we got 2 more people I want to talk about. Emmanuel Sanders. You said you know who DT is out there, and yeah, now he's got Case Keenum. Do you think that offense is going to make a comeback, a bounce back year this year under Keenum, and you think they're going to be able to, with Freeman being maybe loosening up, bringing some more people in the box? You think this is going to be a good year to invest in the Denver uh, pass catchers, or do you think that this is another bad year, kind of like last year, where they just kind of hung out?
Just look at what Thielen did last year with Keenum, and now look at Emmanuel Sanders, and slowly but surely realize that they're the exact same fucking person.
You know what? I really can't argue with that at all. And then Isaiah Crowell, just going at 71. Do you think this was how do you feel about this pick? I'm not sure if this was a you pick or a me pick that I highlighted it for.
I think it was a U pick. That being said, I'm starting to come around. I think Crow he has a real shot to actually make a pretty big impact on the Jets. Like he's just one of those guys that every year we're kind of hyped on, but then that hype turns into like, yeah, I think it could be like a top 30 running back. But then every year he always does better than what you think. I don't know what number off the board he is. My guess is it's 25 to 27, the 27th running back off the board maybe, and I feel like he's gonna do better than that. He always has.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that he's definitely going to overperform what his ADP was. And while this was taken a little high above the ADP, I like the pick. I think that he has the skill set to be the guy for the Jets, and with them having a rookie quarterback starting for them, they're definitely going to want to lean on him a little bit more than let the ball fly around. So I think it's going to be a good year to be a Crow. Um, so from there, let's move on to your favorite mid to late round pick. So we already talked about a bunch of your uh, people in the top 6 rounds. Is there anyone else you really wanted to like spotlight and be like, hey, this is a guy that we didn't talk about, but I love that pick?
In the top 6?
Yeah, in the first 6 rounds. I know I'm putting you on the spot here. I didn't actually bring this up to you earlier when we were just
Oh, I mean,
chatting.
there's a few. I mean, I like Cooper Cup, Chris Thompson. He could, when he comes back, he could be the guy. Carlos Hyde could be the guy. Um, who else do I like? I like Alex Collins a lot. I like Aaron Rodgers going early fourth to Doug. I think that's a great pick. There's a lot of these picks were good. You can really tell that over the last few years, like just our league as a whole has gotten a lot better at drafting.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's really hard. When I was drafting in this draft, I had a bunch of players highlighted. I was like, okay, take this guy over about a round early in ADP, because I think that he's going to be really good, blah blah blah. And it was always like I'd get to that round where I'd be like, okay, these are the 3 guys I'm targeting here, and they'd all be gone. So I mean, definitely people are putting the work in, and maybe listen to people that I listen to or something. I don't know. But anyways, James makes a very good point in chat. He says that J.J. Watt did raise $35 million for people who were affected by the hurricane down in Texas. So maybe Doug's drafting him as like a sign of respect for that.
There ain't no respect in fantasy.
I guess that's fair. All right, so let's start off with your number 5 of your favorite mid to late round picks. Mike Williams, the wide receiver from San Diego, or formerly San Diego, now the Chargers of LA, to Nick at 152.
Yeah, it's like I think San Diego's going to be pretty good this year, offensively, for sure. Philip Rivers still has at least a few years left in the tank. They have a fantastic wide receiving core with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Gordon in the back's going to do great. However, they work out their tight end situation, it's going to be fine. I think Mike Williams and Philip Rivers is one of those guys that he can definitely support 2 fantasy starting wide receivers. And if Mike Williams is that guy, then 152, you're going to get a top end wide receiver 3, maybe even a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I definitely just like I don't know who's gonna win the Mike Williams Tyrell Williams battle for that number 2 spot, but whoever it is, they're gonna be great. And I want to give the favorite to Mike Williams right now based on how he played last year. So moving on to number 4, you had Nelson Agholor, another wide receiver. This one from the Eagles, to Matt M at 108.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm always high on Nelson Agholor. I always think he's going to do great. But this year, like if the stars were going to align, it's this one. Wentz coming back should hopefully be the shell of himself. He has no competition for the first couple of weeks with Alshon Jeffrey out at least 2 weeks. I've been hearing, like, if he can come up and just show up those first 2 weeks, it could be great. I really like him this year.
Yeah, and you're not going to get an argument from me on this one. I think that Aguilar, he's definitely showed it over the last few years that he has talent, and he's just going to be able to showcase it right now. And it's not even like there isn't anybody else on the field in Philadelphia because you're still going to have Sproles to whatever amount he's there. You're going to have Ajayi hanging out there, and you're also going to have Ertz, of course. He's going to be taking coverage away. So I think this is going to be a good year for Agholor. Moving on to number 3, this is actually a double for you because your mind exploded during the draft, if I remember correctly, when you saw Collins and Jones, the safeties, the number 1, number 2 safety, go to myself and Mike in the was it the 13th round, the beginning of the 13th round, or 10th round? Sorry, 11th round.
The 11th round. Yeah, they're going to be the number 1 and number 2 safeties, and they win in the 11th. And there's not much argument. Like they've been the best for a while, and they're going to continue unless maybe 1 or 2 show up this year, and these guys are still essentially a lock for top 5 unless they get hurt.
Yeah,
No,
and
wait, a top five guy in the 11th round. It doesn't matter what position.
yeah, and it was also funny because those two picks go off the board, your head explodes, and you're like, "Oh my God, that's such insane value." And then you start thinking to yourself, "Well, maybe I should start looking at safeties." And then every time a safety got taken off the board from that on out, I'm pretty sure I heard you audibly sigh because it was always like right before you, and you were just like, "Okay, I'm gonna get my safety now." Oh, never mind, I'm going to wait another round, and it was just a bit of a saga for you there.
The problem is there's only like four or defensive backs are so weird because there's only a few that are safe, and that safe is in quotation marks. These two are the only ones that are safe. But there's like five that are like expected enough to be good, and then the rest are just an absolute crapshoot. And I got none of those guys. I got a crapshoot guy, which I'm sad about, but whatever.
I mean, I feel like defensive back is somebody you can definitely stream a top 10 person every week if you know what you're looking for. I don't. That's why I took Jones. Um,
Yeah, probably.
so moving on to number two, you love Marquise Goodwin at 104 to Nick.
Yep, this is my 1B best pick of the draft. I have Goodwin ranked 61st. If you look at that number, that is a three-digit number.
Yeah, that's a much bigger number.
That's a solid 3 rounds, in my opinion. I think him and Garoppolo are going to hit it off. I think they're going to continue what they did last year, and I think he's just going to. I don't know, man. Someone in San Francisco is going to blow up, and I think it's going to be Goodwin.
Yeah, and who's the coach out there? I don't know. Was it somebody who like almost won a Super Bowl with the Falcons 2 years ago?
It doesn't matter. I don't care.
I'm just saying.
Garoppolo, MVP. You
I'm
heard
just
it here
saying
first, folks.
they have a really good offense out there that tends to
Yeah.
love
I
throwing the
know
ball.
where you're.
So
I know where you're coming from, and that's just another like point for Goodwin.
yeah, I think
I
he's
don't
going
know,
to be
man.
crazy. Um, and then finally, your number one pick was something that broke my heart. Deshaun Watson going to Micah 80th.
I mean, literally one pick before me, and I was going to pick him at 81st and then brag to the entire league for the rest of the day about how I got the steal of the draft. And then Mike took him, that bastard. I mean, are there concerns about his injury? For sure. But look at his stats. Those games. That, like, if he is even a shell of himself, he's a top five quarterback. And if he just continues where he left off, if he has those stats, you're going to know it in the first 4 games. If it looks like he has those same stats, he will be the number one quarterback this year. The stats he had were just mind blowing, and the fact that he did it as a rookie is just absolutely fucking disgusting. I I have no words.
Yeah, I think
We
he is the quarterback version of Alvin Kamara last year, where they both put up just stupid good numbers. They were ultra efficient. They did everything exactly perfect in every situation. And if they can keep it up, then we could be looking at somebody who's going to be the one of the best elite quarterbacks and running backs going forward. And to get that at the 80th pick, yeah. Um, and also, it hurt me. It hurt me to see this because I took Wilson in the fifth because I was like, oh, there's probably gonna be a run on quarterbacks coming soon. I want to get ahead of it a little bit and just kind of jump in on that, and then nothing. So
Yeah,
there's that. Uh,
quarterbacks go late for us, and always has, always will.
so moving on, now it's time for my favorite mid to late round picks, and I'm going to start off with Danny Amendola, and I will let you say your piece in a second. I know you don't like him, but when you look at all the targets that have left Miami over the last year, especially with Jarvis Landry and all those targets going away, I think that they're going to continue needing somebody in the slot to catch those you know precision passes from 10 yards away that Tannehill loves to do. And I think that's going to be Amendola's role. He's just going to sit there and he's just going to, just do his short little routes that he did in New England, and I think is going to be really good, and especially in PPR. If it was full PPR, I'd like it even more, but even in half, I think he's definitely going to be one of those guys that's going to surprise a lot of people, and he's definitely going to return. I think, he's going to be a flex a lot of weeks for people, and at 133, that's a great value.
My turn.
Yeah.
Kenny Stills, Danny Amendola, Kenyon Drake out of the backfield, Gesicki at the tight end, and the corpse of Devontae Parker somewhere in the mix. These are the 5 people that Ryan Tannehill is going to throw to. Ryan Tannehill throwing to 5 different targets means none of them are going to be good. He does not do it well. The Miami Dolphins offense is going to be bad this year. I would stay away from everyone. Danny Amendola should not have been drafted.
So the one thing that I heard there that I think is entirely untrue is you said the name Devontae Parker as if he is going to be able to do anything this year and isn't going to spend most of the time hurt, or in my opinion, maybe even not on the team. And they'll bring in like Albert Wilson or something. But I do.
If he gets cut, I forgot about Albert Wilson. There's so many fucking people. I hope to God he gets cut. I
Yes.
don't want Devontae Parker on the team. That being said, if he is on the team, we are going to force him into situations, and we are going to force the ball to him. We did it the last year. We did it the year before that. It's going to happen. If he's on the team, he will vulture way too many targets than he should.
So not to turn this into a Miami Dolphins podcast, but do you not think that Gesicki is going to get those similar targets? Because the reason that they loved Parker is he's this big guy who can jump up and grab those 50-50 balls. And I think that's why they drafted Gesicki, is because, one, we had garbage tight ends, and two, he's that type of guy who you can just say, go over there, I'm going to throw the ball up, and you can just be a man over these other players, get the ball, and that's kind of what we were doing with Parker.
But Gesicki's a tight end. The things we're going to do with Parker is they're going to push him to the outside, try to strip the defense. They're going to try to get him those 15-yard out routes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Gesicki can't do that. Parker obviously can't do it either, but we're going to try to force it to him. Anyway, fucking hate the Dolphins.
All right. Well, I think that's enough Dolphins talk for this podcast. Not podcast, whatever we're doing. Twitch stream. So number 4, Geronimo Allison to Doug at 201. We saw some flashes from him last year, and I feel like in the last round to get somebody who, if let's say Cobb gets hurt, that offense has just so much potential to just be, again, one of the best offenses in the league, because that's what they do in Green Bay now, especially with Aaron Rodgers slinging the ball around. I think that you could get, top 24 wide receiver value off of Geronimo Allison easily if he ends up taking over Cobb's role partway through the season. So I think that's a really good pick from Doug. And yeah, it's a bit of a homer pick for him because he's a big Green Bay fan. But I really do like that offense, and I think that offense is going to do some really awesome things. And yes, he's the number 3. And yes, they have Jimmy G. Yes, they have running backs out of the backfield. But I just think that Geronimo Allison could be one of those guys who just kind of takes over from Cobb, and we've already seen that they can support 2, 3, 4 receiving threats in Green Bay.
Yeah, you want Aaron Rodgers second.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw this statistic, but it was something like when Aaron Rodgers in games with Aaron Rodgers, he averages 2 point something wide receiver 1s and 2s per game, which is insane to me that he can support on average more than 2 wide receivers being great. So yeah, that's my number 4 pick. For number 3, it was Peyton Barber to Steve at 98th. I said something the other day on Slack. It was something like, Ronald Jones, the person who was supposed to come in and take the job from Peyton Barber, has rushed 28 times for 25 yards in the preseason. And this included time against the number 2s and number 3s in certain situations for that team. And I don't know if that's because they were sitting better linemen and he just didn't have any blocks, or what the issue is with him. But with Sims already going down, and Ronald Jones just kind of looking like garbage. Unless they really try to force the issue because they spent so much to get Jones, I really think Peyton Barber could just run away with the job. And once they get Jameis back, that offense could really start, picking up some speed here. And I think that's going to be a great value pick.
I've heard from a few people that they just say Peyton Barber. And what that means is he's nothing special. He's a running back that'll come in. He's okay. If you need to use him, he will. The problem is, Ronald Jones showed us that he might not even be just a guy. He might be worse than just a guy. So, who the hell knows? Tampa Bay's line depth is also really, really bad. So Peyton Barber is really, really hoping that the starters stay healthy throughout the year. Because if anyone gets hurt, the whole team's going to fall apart.
Yeah, that's very fair. I could definitely see that being a big issue going forward with any running back, really, but especially when it's as thin as it is out in Tampa Bay. Yeah, I don't want any piece of that if it ends up going south for them. But I don't think that's bad value at 98. My number two was Jordan Wilkins to Matt M at 156. Another, we're talking like 13th, 14th round at this point. To get somebody who, if Mac is not able to perform up to what people think, Wilkins might be able to just step in and just be, maybe not the guy. He might share a little bit, but I think he can eventually work himself into a bigger role in an offense that, with luck back, should be better. They should be able to make some running room for people rather than having, Brissett trying his best to make T.Y. Hilton relevant and to do anything out there. But yeah, I like it. I like it there. I think that's a really good pick for how late it was.
Yeah, late round running backs are always great. They got a shot.
Yeah, I really don't think there's much else to talk about with Wilkins, so we're going to move on to my number one, which is basically every quarterback not named Mahomes after the seventh round. Because, like, we saw Deshaun Watson where he got taken, but there's also just like, there's people on the waiver wire right now that I would look at, and I'm like, yeah, if I didn't draft a quarterback at all, I could pick him up, put him in as my starter, and go, yep, this is fine. I'm fine with this. Let's go. Like, you know, I don't know why, but Big Ben's sitting on the waiver wire right now, and that just is a little bit, confusing to me that there are people like more than that.
Yeah, Big Ben's on the waiver wire, top wide receiver, and his two favorite targets were taken in the first round. Like, I find that so funny.
Yeah, I mean, and not only the two favorite targets in the first round, he also had Juju going in the fourth, and he opens the season against the Browns. Like, I don't think the Browns got that much better. That I mean, that just I feel like I definitely wasted a pick taking Wilson in the fifth. I should have just sat back, but man, if I get a phone call tomorrow and someone says, "Yo, Russell Wilson's out for the season. Something happened. He decided to, go plant potatoes on a farm in Idaho, and he's going to do that for a year." You know what? I'm fine with picking up Big Ben. So, that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, don't do that. I need Baldwin to get targets.
So I just want to look at a couple interesting facts that I found just kind of looking through what happened. Quarterbacks went on average about a round later than ADP, which is a trend for our league. We tend to take people about a round later, at least the quarterbacks, just because of the fact that I don't know, we just love waiting on quarterbacks, whatever that's about. Um, for the undrafted guys, I'm a little bit surprised with Rivers, Roethlisberger, Rashard Matthews, and Blount. I know Blount has since been picked up, but I think Rashard Matthews is still going to be something if Tennessee's offense, is okay. I don't think Corey Davis is going to take over right away, but if he does, then I mean that's fine. That's where he would end up on the waiver wire anyways, right after. But Rivers and Roethlisberger, I mean, again, we said this about Roethlisberger a minute ago. Rivers also had two people taken in the top two rounds that were, people he likes to throw the ball to. I know Gordon's not, Bell levels of catching the ball, but he does have hands. And, Keenan Allen's one of those people are really hyped about this year coming off of his season last year. And one of your favorite picks was, one of his other wide receivers, one of the Williams. So yeah, no, I just thought those were some interesting people.
Yeah.
um, and just a fun fact, uh, which I thought was pretty interesting. We took 15 quarterbacks, 62 running backs, 64 wide receivers, 15 tight ends, 22 linebackers, 13 defensive linemen, and 13 defensive backs taken. Which means that most people followed the idea that the linebackers are always going to be able to outscore the linemen and the defensive backs. So you are just going to want a linebacker in your IDP slot. But Doug decided that he wanted defensive lineman, and Dave took a defensive back. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with this new slot that we get to play around with. If it's just going to be linebackers every week, or if people are going to begin to look elsewhere for matchups and stuff like that, and really make that position a little bit better than just a second linebacker.
I really think it's just gonna that number 24 linebackers. I mean,
Okay. So now let's move on to your favorite team, and it is James. So congratulations, James. I see in chat there. You think that he's got the best team, and I think he's definitely top three for me. I really like a lot of what he's got going on.
yeah. The reason why a lot of people say I don't are Kamara and Hill. These are guys that are coming off of insanely good seasons. People think they performed well above what they should have, and they're going to regress. I don't know, man. Kamara, he's got 4 games all by his lonesome, and Tyreek Hill has a shiny new quarterback who can throw the ball really far. His Kamara and Henry is a solid 1-2. Greenhill is a solid 1-2. Cam Newton could show up and do what he did last year and blow up. Juju is another high. Like his James's ceiling is so high. It is so fucking high. His floor is low, but if he hits, ah, there
I
might be
mean,
no stopping him. He could just sit on this team and just see us in the playoffs if all goes well.
he could be sitting there week 5 trying to decide, oh, do I want to start Juju or Elshon or Ty Montgomery if he ends up, taking over the job or doing really well. Which of those guys are starting my flex? And other people will be like, we would start them at a position. And yeah, I think he not only has those studs at the top, he also has insane depth. Even Bilal Powell, Keenan Cole and Cameron Meredith, those are all people who could become something very easily. And yeah, that's just a really really good team. So congratulations, James. This is real solid. So we're gonna move on to my favorite team, which is Mike. Now, I think that Mike has a better team of starters, and James has better depth. But you already had said that you like James more, so I had to, of course, pick somebody else. I didn't want to just talk about James more, as much as James would enjoy it. So I ended up going with Mike's team, with a lot of that being that Deshaun Watson pick, because he could have the number one quarterback in the league and the number one tight end in the league, and from there you have Emmanuel Sanders, who a lot of people, like you said, he could be this year's Thielen. T.Y. Hilton, if he has Luck back, he could be a top 5 guy because that's what he had been with Luck over the years. Yeah, he had a bad year last year, but come on. Odell Beckham, he's had a year, to recover from that just disgusting ankle injury. And we know he can be a top 3 guy. Joe Mixon is a lot of people's, hot guy this year. He's gonna be one of the guys who can break out because they did retool that offensive line. And you always have to cover AJ Green, so it's not like they can just completely stack the box. So yeah, I really like him, and I think he's got a really good team. I don't know. If he has some bad injuries, it's gonna go the other way. But I really do like his starters at least.
I think Mike is kind of similar, where he has then there's no stopping him. Uh, the thing that Mike obviously has over James is tight end. I'm not a Jack Doyle fan. I'm very much a Rob Gronkowski fan. Also worth noting, everyone says, "Oh, Rob Gronkowski, he's obviously gonna get hurt." When did that happen last year? When he was the number one fucking tight end? Why does people keep saying that he's gonna get hurt 100%? He played all year last year.
Well,
I
because
mean, damn.
he's one of those players that you're expecting to miss a game or two from him every season. And I think people look at that and they take it as, oh my God, he's a big injury risk. It's a game or two. And if you're going to get wide receiver one numbers 14 weeks out of the year out of your tight end, and 2 weeks out of the year you have to find someone on waivers, yes, I will take that. That is a good deal. Thank you very much, sir.
Mike's good.
Yeah. Unlike your mic, which is apparently not doing great. I guess you keep cutting in and out of for some reason.
Your fault.
Probably. Moving on to what you think is your worst team, and that is Doug's team. Um, is that mostly based on the fact that he kind of punted in the first round, or like what do you think about that?
I don't like Julio. I don't like Cook. I don't like Johnson. I don't like Brandon Cooks. I don't like his bench. Why the fuck do you have Jimmy Garoppolo if you already took Aaron Rodgers? Khalil Mack's gonna be a bear, therefore he's terrible. JJ Watt's gonna die. I don't understand. All of it, his ADP was okay, but fucking just the composition I hate. How did Duke Johnson end up as his RB2?
Did he take Sony Michelle first, and then have to put him on the bench because he was hurt?
I don't know. I I don't understand how you cannot have, and he's somehow accomplished it.
Yeah. He definitely had a couple suspect picks, but he does have probably one of the best defensive players on the Bears with Khalil Mack now. Which is a much more interesting thing than anything going on Malcolm's Instagram. Um, and yeah, we have found
Got him.
Devontae Parker, got him. Uh, and yeah, just looking at that bench, he has some good players and some good players elsewhere. I don't know. I agree with you. It's not a great team. Another team that I'm not too fond of is what I'm calling Milk's Wild Ride, because he's got a ton of people who, if they live up to the potential and the hype, man, he's got a sick team. But I also don't like this team because it's all insane upside and insane downside. And he has what? Michael Thomas as the only player I can look at on the board on his entire team and be like, yep, that's somebody who is going to get consistent value out of pretty much no matter what happens this year.
I think I honestly would put this team
Where would you put this team?
top half.
Oh, wow. See, I would probably just like empirically put it higher than last. I don't think this is actually my quote unquote worst team. But when I look at this team, I'm just afraid of it because they're all boomer busts. And hey, that's how you win championships in this league, I think. You got to take some risks somewhere, but taking risks everywhere, I think that's a bit much for me.
I
Um,
feel pretty good about Fournette, Freeman, and Tom. I think that's a Josh Gordon. Who the hell knows? Jordan Reed. I don't really like Jordan Reed, but he has relatively good depth too. Coleman, Garcon, Fuller, all guys that could do more. Carlos Hyde is his flex right now, which is fine. He seems pretty good at running back, honestly. Um, and his wide receiver 1 and 2 are fine too. I don't know. I think his team has a higher floor than you think.
hmm, I just think they're a little bit spooky, is all. But uh, let's continue forward because we're coming up on the hour mark, and I did not want this to be an hour long. Your team. Is there anything you want to really like? Any picks that you really like or didn't like about your team, or anything you really want to point out about how you built it?
I'm surprised um, that I got Barkley. I thought he was going to go earlier. I'm surprised people don't like him. I'm not super in love with him, but 10th overall, I was happy with. I was happy to get Collins late. My defense feels good. I definitely took CJ Mosley too high,
Mm-hmm.
and my bench is just flyers I like. So yeah, my team feels comfortable. I'll give myself a solid B.
Awesome. Um, do 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 do. I'm just making you a mod in case you want to just jump into chat real quick and clean that up for me. Same thing with you, James. If you just want to get rid of whatever that was that showed up there. Um, all right, so now it's time for me to talk a little bit about my team. We got, you know, my boy Kenyon Drake leading the way for me. Hopefully he'll be, somebody who continues to do good stuff. But you never know what's going to happen in the league. I don't know. I think definitely I made some suspect picks at times, but my favorite part about my team is I opened wide receiver, and I think I got two, really high guys there. Um, and then I got Drake, who I think is really good, but I also have Chris Carson, who can get me through the early parts of the season if he continues to be the starter as Penny tries to get up to speed and comes back from his injury. So if I really need running back because either Drake or Miller end up being flops, I can just kind of slot him in for a little bit and then wait for Kerryon Johnson to come through and then move him in. So I kind of like how I start the season with Carson and the season with Johnson. I like how I built that up. But yeah, other than that, it's I like my team. It's not great. It's not something I would that's nothing really to write home about. But I think it's definitely a top half team, and I'm interested to see how it went because I definitely went all in on the IDPs. And I think people will notice it in the draft too. I said to myself, I just want, top level people at every position at the in IDP, so I can have one of those, you know, I can have one of those things where I can just set those guys, walk away, and never have to worry about my IDPs again, instead of having to fight like I did last year, trying to like move people in and out. So
Your running backs are spooky, and I hate them. That's my.
that is probably one of the coldest takes you can have on my team. I mean, it is. Yeah, no, I will admit it. Drake, Miller, Johnson, Carson, Bernard, and Breida are not people you look at and you go, "Yep, those are definitely locks to be good this year." So I'm just kind of going on faith with that. But I only need is two of them to hit, and I think I'm good from there. So let's move on to Fantasy Pros. I paid a little bit for Fantasy Pros Extra or Prime or whatever it's called. So I threw those guys in, and this is what we ended up getting. Apparently, they love your team, Jerry. You are like head and shoulders above everybody else. Followed up by myself. How do you feel about that? Do you think this is an accurate representation of your team?
I think Fantasy Pros, uh, they rate not safe picks, but like lukewarm picks really high, like moderate floor, moderate ceiling, and I think my team has a lot of that. So I've always found that Fantasy Pros leans heavily towards safety, and that's always my drafting style. Is I generally try to go safe. You can see that with Drew Brees. I guess my number one pick is a little sketchy, but Keenan Allen's super safe. I think Barkley's safe. Obviously, Fantasy Pros agrees. I think Alex Collins is safe. I think a lot of my safe is that's what they like about my team.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely borne out with if you look at the other end, you have Steve at the bottom, and then just above him is Malcolm. And those are definitely two people who, when you look at their teams, it's a lot of, like I was saying with Malcolm earlier, a lot of boom bust potential. Like a lot of people who can have low floors and high ceilings. So Yeah, I'm not going to put too much stock in what Fantasy Pro says, but I am going to pop in on them time to time and just see, what they say, just so I'm not some kind of crazy person just sitting here screaming at my computer for you guys being like, "Oh, these people are clearly going to be garbage," and it's like, no, they're not going to be garbage. They're actually going to be fine. Uh, so yeah, so thank you very much for coming, Jerry. We got in under an hour. How do you like that?
I'm gonna go play Path.
Yeah, you go play some Path and go win the season or whatever you do for that. I don't know if it's like a race to beat it for the first time or whatever.
Nope.
All right, cool. I guess that's all we're getting. So thank you guys all for listening. Next week's gonna be the first quote unquote real stream of the season. I'm gonna be working on that at some point next week. I got the whole week off, which means I don't have a lot of time to work on the PowerPoints and everything like that. But it'll probably be something quick because I already talked a lot about teams and picks and everything here. Just telling you guys who I have is my my favorite for the season and my 1 through 12. And yeah, maybe I'll go over like some of the stuff from the owners meeting just in case people don't remember. And I can talk about incentives and stuff like that too. Yeah, I can definitely fill all this out. All right. So I'll see you guys later, and thank you guys for watching. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for sitting through an hour of this stuff. um, yeah, I try my best. All right, and of course, thanks again to Jerry. You were great. Yeah.
Damn right.
All right, I wasn't sure if you were still here. All right, bye everybody.